it's the next level.
Hey, my name is Ross Marquand, and I play Red Skull. You are listening to Panels to Pixels podcast. Check it out.
I was where you are. I thought about that one-eyed fucker all the time, and it terrified me. But I am no longer afraid. On 11/2, the Soviet Union was on the verge of annihilating us, and we were more than prepared to return the favor. Then that enormous tentacled abomination teleported into New York. If it hadn't arrived when it did, we would all be ash. It united us against a common threat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And this week we're discussing Watchmen Season 1, Episode 5, Little Fear of Lightning.
Yes, Little Fear of Lightning. I love this episode. I love that we got a lot of answers in this episode. We got a few more questions as well, but I also really love that I hope this episode can help those non-comic book readers that are watching the show understand some of what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for the fact that we see a scene that happened back in, I would say, 1985?
85, right.
And we see a character, you don't grasp it unless you actually look at his costume or disguise is now and realize at the very end what that all meant.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because obviously we're alluding to a carnival scene, and you see a boy pretty much almost naked in a carnival. What was it, a fun house with all the glass?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is we get this backstory of not only of Looking Glass, but we get the backstory for those who haven't read the comic book. They now know what this event is that everyone's been talking about. This thing that happened with the squid attacking New York. And that's the huge thing right there, is just seeing that he was, part of the they had the Watchtower. Isn't that is that Jehovah's Witness or 7 No, it's Jehovah's Witnesses.
It is. Yeah, it is Jehovah's Witness. They have one up by me. Yeah.
So I think that's what they were doing. That was like the mission that they go out on. They have to do one of their acts of service or something like that.
Yep.
I don't know a lot about that religion, but yeah. So that's what they were doing, is they were doing part of their mission, and it happened right at the date, which would be November 1st, November 2nd, 1985.
Yep.
There, when the squid attacked New York, and then branched out, as we hear in the rest of the episode, when they explain that however many million died in the blast zone, but then there were millions that were also affected, mentally, by that psychic blast, to where, like Agent Blake, she alludes to it when she says, oh, people who were in the psychic blast still have trauma. They still wake up scared. They still have bad dreams. They still have that psychic. And that's why he wears that, whatever they call it, reflectitine in his hat, and that's what his mask is made out of. So yeah, I love that we got all this backstory on Looking Glass.
Yeah, exactly. And we're probably going to learn a lot more once we get in our top fives.
Yeah. And I think I started last week, if I remember listening to the podcast, so I think it's your turn to start.
Sure. Well, my number 5 would be the intro was really interesting to see. The mirrors were a dead giveaway about Looking Glass, when he was in the funhouse. I knew this was going to be a little bit more character-specific episode, or a bottle episode, because of this. And plus, like I said, the mirrors were a dead giveaway, because I'm like, wait a minute, there's a lot of mirrors around. He wears that thing. Okay, that's him.
Yeah, well, and plus that, they cast a really good younger version of him.
Yes.
It really does look like a younger version of Tim Blake Nelson. I could see that, the way they did his hair and everything growing into, and then of course when they added it and it cuts to showing him older. So yeah, that was really, really great. My number 5 is just something that I realized as I watched this episode a couple of times, is that since podcasting with you, and I have to give you the credit for this, Mark, because I don't think I would have really picked up on these things if it hadn't been for podcasting with you. I mean, I've heard of a couple of other podcasts that key in on music, but you really have an ear for music. And so I've started to kind of listen to that. And really, the music in this episode was really, really good. I want to really highlight that guitar solo after Wade, meets with his ex-wife there in her lab. And that was really good, that kind of guitar solo. And then throughout the episode, they use that Careless Whisper song and Some Enchanted Evening as well. It's used, we hear different versions of it, different covers of those songs throughout the episode, and I thought they did a really, really good job with that.
Yeah, meshing it with the actual scene and the feeling of the scene within the music, not only just lyrics, but also just the tone of the music itself and how it feels. That's what I always look for, and that's what I always love.
Yeah, I've been rewatching Lost we mentioned it before, the joint podcast again, Next Level Network podcast. We have to go back, Lost Revisited, and the episode they just covered this week was Trisha Tanaka is Dead. And in that episode, Michael Giacchino does a orchestral version of Three Dog Night's Shambhala that is just amazing. I mean, that cut alone had me order the soundtrack, the season 3 Lost soundtrack for that song, because it's really so good. So I highly recommend, if you want to seek it out. I know it's on Spotify because I listened to it the other day. The Michael Giacchino orchestra version of Shambhala from Three Dog Night.
Awesome.
What was your number 4?
Number 4, that would be the lady that Wade meets at group. I really like the self-help group overall, based on the November 2nd incident in 1985. The fact that she went to the depths to get into Wade's life purposely, and obviously we see that at the very end. Why? But eye-openings in this episode, too, that this leads to is amazing, I think.
Yeah, the whole setup with her was great. That we see, we get this support group. We get her kind of just hanging out, not really telling her story, and then him trying to convince her to tell his story, to tell her story, and she's like, no, I'm not going to come back. And then she kind of basically flirts with him and hits on him, gets him to ask her out, and they go to have drinks, and then they're both drunk, so they're not supposed to drive home, but she gets picked up by somebody, and just the whole way they set that thing up. And then she even reveals that, like you said, there at the end, when she's like, no, the lettuce didn't fall off the truck by accident. We wanted you to follow us. We wanted to see and to get all these revelations that Wade gets, that I'm sure we're going to talk more and more about in our top 5, or definitely in our notes, because we learned a lot in this. This was, I said in the last episode that I didn't want them to reveal a bunch of stuff too quick, but I think they revealed just the right amount of stuff.
Yeah.
And answered just the right amount of questions in this episode, and kind of kept it. They capped off the answers of one particular, kind of in one particular order. But I really, really liked how this episode gave us those answers that we've been asking for. And it's only episode 5. We've still got 4 more to go.
Yeah.
So my number 4 is just Wade's lie detector ability. And I just got done, in fact, watching an episode of Warehouse 13, that there's a character that joins the cast in season 3 who has that ability to where he can tell when anybody's lying. And it's they use it really effectively in Warehouse 13. And I don't know if Wade's really is, if it's like a superpower or just something he's developed over the years, or if it has something to do with him getting lied to in that funhouse and then, being affected by that. Maybe I really thought it was really cool. And that his cover occupation is that he doesn't watch the marketing video research, but he watches the people who watch the videos, and then tells the company if those reactions that they're getting from the people is genuine. I really, really love that the guy's going through the cards and he's like 10, 10, 10. And he's like, yeah, that's what they wrote on the thing. But I'm telling you, I watched them and I knew how they reacted to it. And those cards are not telling you the truth of what their reaction was. I really loved that whole scene, and it really got me. It piqued my interest as to the other, if it's just the detectives who have to maintain a kind of a cover identity, or if every cop obviously every cop has to have some sort of backstory, or has to have some sort of cover story that they tell people when they're, because he said, remember in the first episode when Jed goes and visits the home of the police officer who was killed, he said, he asks the wife, well, did anyone know that he was a cop? And she's like, no, of course not. We kept that secret. And so obviously her husband had to tell people something when they asked what he did. And so it kind of makes me wonder if every police officer has to actually maintain a cover identity, or if maybe it's just the detectives that actually, because, Angela has the bakery, Looking Glass has this marketing research job. What other jobs do the other detectives have, or the cops have, that kind of hides their identity? I'm really, I don't, we may not get many answers to it, but it just kind of piqued my interest of the fact that these are, for lack of a better term, these are licensed heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
they are authorized.
yeah.
That would bring me to my number 3.
Yeah.
Which would be the senator telling Wade about keeping the peace with all groups, and to find out, basically it was an organized effort.
That was, and I never picked up on the whole painting thing, I guess, and I know TV Podcast Industries, their podcast, talked about this, and I think it's in the PDpedia files, that painting that was in Judd's house that the senator sees and comments on, that's the painting that tells you that he's the 7th Cavalry guy.
Exactly.
And so now the senator is there, and the senator is like, now I've got to play both roles, where I didn't have to do that before.
Yep.
And so I really thought that was, I'm with you on that. That reveal was huge. And I know other people said they suspected it or they saw it coming, but it wasn't a surprise to me that he was working with them. It was a surprise to me that he was basically like in charge. Because like he says that, he tells Looking Glass, he says, you can either throw Angela under the bus, make him let the FBI know about this evidence against her, or get their eyes off from the 7th Cavalry for a few days, or I can send these, what did he call them, racist rednecks to her house to kill her whole family.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, that is just cold-blooded. So in a way, Wade's betrayal is not as much it's a betrayal, yes, but he really was doing it to protect Angela, because if he didn't do it, they were going to kill her. So that brings us to my number 3.
Yeah.
It's just those pills, that nostalgia. And I thought it was funny that I know it was in the movie. I'm pretty sure, I think it's in the comic book as well, that Nostalgia was the name of the perfume that Adrian Veidt was producing. And so these pills that are called Nostalgia, that are basically manufactured memories, is what the Wade's ex-wife tells him. And they're highly dangerous. They're illegal. And I wonder what's going to happen now with her, that she's taken this whole mouthful of them. And are they Will's memories? Are they somebody else? I mean, I think we're to assume that they're Will's memories, because he was taking them, remember, and he said, these are from my memory. And
yes,
but what's going to happen to her now that she's taken this whole mouthful of them? Is it that's kind of an overdose, or what's going to go on with that? I'm next episode.
Maybe she'll have a elongated acid trip.
Yeah, some kind of crazy. Is she gonna start talking like Louis Gossett Jr.? Is she gonna, what's gonna happen to her? I'm intrigued to see what kind of consequences.
How many years of memories does she get?
What does she get? Does each pill have a specific memory? Does it target a certain? I don't know. Or do they just target specific areas of the brain to bring back your own memories? I don't know.
That's what I was thinking originally it would have been, but with the way things are written, you never know. Maybe it has some sort of those pills were fitted for him particularly, and then they were handed to her so she could understand his point of view. Who knows? All right, so that would bring me to my number 2.
I believe, yes.
And that would be finding out that Adrian Veidt was sending all these clones as test subjects to the moon. Oh my goodness. And the fact that he finally gets there so that he himself can go to the moon and leave a message. But we see all the bodies and him moving them and everything. He's physically standing on the moon.
Yeah. My impression was that he's in some sort of domed prison on the moon. Now, maybe he's not. Maybe maybe it's orbiting the moon or something like that. But like the impression I got was that he actually that whatever he's living in, snow globe, is actually on the moon. When he was throwing the bodies out, he was throwing them out side of the bubble. What I don't get is, unless this is the only time he's been able to, or maybe he did, maybe he threw all the bodies out there and he was able to build that message in one trip. And that it wasn't, so it would have to have taken him hours, don't you think, to assemble that sign?
Yeah, pretty much.
He could have just done it.
Yeah.
You know,
Use those bodies to make probably, a word.
Yeah, well, save me is what it read. Because he sees that, he apparently knows when that satellite is going to come around, and he puts that word out there spelled out in the body so the satellite can take a picture of it, hopefully, I guess, and then they yank him back in to the dome or whatever he's living in, and then they start beating on him. Which, that whole scene. That just stuff with him is just, like I said last week, it just keeps getting more bizarre.
It is bizarre. It makes me think, who's the game warden, or that guy that was with the mask on the horse that time? Who is he? Is he his warden for his prison?
Yeah, it looked like to me like he was just another clone of the Phillip clones, but maybe he's like the original Phillip, Mr. Phillips. Because it seemed to me he looked similar, even though he had the mask on and the hat. He looked similar to the clone. I'm gonna keep calling them clones because that's what they seem like they must have been. So maybe he's the original Mr. Phillips who started this whole thing. We still don't know who put Adrian Veidt there. I thought it was really interesting that he mentions he's been there. I can't remember, was it this episode or last episode that he mentioned he's been there for 4 years?
Yes.
And so if we put the timeline together, so 1985, he manufactures the squid attack that attacks New York. Then in 1993, President Redford receives the video that Adrian Veidt made on November 1st, 1985, telling him, you're watching this, I'm recording this video on November 1st, 1985, you're watching it on January 1st, 1993, and you've just been sworn in as president. And then he says, and so he lays it all out, how he manufactured the squid attack. He set up everything for him to become president. And then there's a really interesting line. I had this later on in my notes to discuss, but he says an interesting line. He says, now we've got a few hours. Let me tell you more. Or let me tell you what else is going to happen. And so I really found that interesting that video was hours long. So I wonder how much Wade watched.
The whole thing?
Did he watch the whole video? Yeah. Did he watch just enough to see it? And this goes right into my number 2. So it is I already started talking a little bit about Wade's betrayal of Angela. And now as I start thinking about it more and more, I don't really think about it as much of a betrayal as that he saved her. He was really keeping her alive. Because what's the worst? I'm not saying the worst. It's the worst crime she's committed is basically covering up Will's involvement in the murder.
Correct. Yeah.
She didn't murder Judd, and so I really found that interesting. I'm kind of surprised that the video was enough to convince him, but now, like I said, as I start talking about it and thinking more about it, I realize that it's not just the fact that she lied to him, that she's been keeping things from him, but it's the fact that he wants to keep her safe. So I really think that's more of the core of why he did it, is keeping her safe instead of that he felt betrayed because she lied to him.
Yeah, it gets interesting.
And then of course at the end, the cavalry coming to his house, I can only assume they're coming to kill him. He's done what he was asked to do, and now they're gonna eliminate him.
Yeah,
And I hope we see that in the next episode, that we get to see how either he was. If they kill him, I guess that's. But I hope he escapes. I hope he finds some way of beating him, maybe getting into his shelter or something.
Which
I don't know.
I don't know. It's funny how I look at Wade now, not because of the mask. I think just the way he's been going around doing things, and it gives me reflections of Rorschach a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
A little bit extreme, wears that full mask when he needs to, and he's kind of blunt the way he talks to people, and just his investigative, like him being able to read people
Yeah. Well, and even when he came home after work, when he takes his cap off and we see that he's got that stuff in the top of his cap, he puts his mask on while he eats dinner
Yes.
because he's so scared of another squid attack. And it's not until the end of the episode, that we see him throw that stuff out because he finds out that it was all fake, that it was all manufactured, that it's not going to happen again. Of course, he still doesn't know what the senator is planning because obviously they're planning something they're using those same kind of teleportation doorways. And, he says, I think, Wade says something like, you're going to drop another squid on Tulsa. And the senator's like, oh, it's much bigger. What we're going to do is much bigger than that. And so you suddenly go, whoa, wait a minute. So who is the senator working with? Is he working with Lady True? Was he working with Adrian Veidt? Because, he says he found that video. And so it goes back to what you said last week. Did Lady True, did she kind of, subjugate Adrian Veidt and take over his company? Or did he leave? These are all more questions that we got. We did get a lot of answers in this episode, but we got a bunch more.
It leads to more questions.
Exactly.
That would lead me to my number one.
Your number one, yes.
That would be Looking Glass wanting to help Angela, like you spoke about, knowing that the pills bring back memories. After this episode, Looking Glass knows what is going on, but to turn in Angela, we already discussed this. You kind of turned me on that. Yeah, but I still think it was crazy. Plus, her taking all those pills. So I thought that was a bit wild.
Yeah, it's kind of like, why? Why? Yeah, I'm with you because my number one is just as many answers as we got. It's all the more questions that we got because I'm totally with you. Why? What's the purpose of her taking those pills? Is it so they can't analyze them and figure out whose pills they are? Because if she realizes that the plant is bugged, then they know that Will killed, or they know that Will confessed to murdering Judd, and I believe she even said that he is her grandfather in that conversation. So there's nothing they're going to be able to find out from I don't think there's anything they can find out from those pills. So what's her purpose in taking a mouthful of them?
Maybe she thought that would bring her closer to Will, Maybe, like you were saying before, maybe these are his memories, and this is her thought of, well, this will bring me closer to him and understand him more. Who knows? Yeah.
And just more and more that, just like I said, more and more of these questions that we've got. We've still got the questions about Angela's husband. What is this? Like you talked about when I was re-listening to our podcast from I was listening to our podcast from last week. I remember this whole conversation we had about Angela's husband and what is this accident that she mentioned that he was in, that he obviously survived. What, now that we know that Adrian is not on Earth, we believe he's on the moon.
Yeah.
Who put him there? He says he's been there 4 years, but has he been there 4 years? Maybe time runs slower on the moon or runs faster. I don't know. So how long has he actually been there? The senator revealing the whole thing that Judd was the leader of the cavalry, and now I guess the senator is the leader of the cavalry, and how they've been working together trying to keep this peace like you talked about before. All these things are more and more questions that we got that I'm back to, last episode we had a lot to talk about, but it was just, we were very much, everything was a setup. And this episode is like everything is
right there.
We get answers, but we're getting more questions.
Still more questions in our own head.
Yeah. So you had one quote here.
Yeah, I had one quote. Well, that would be the senator saying, "Call it a squid pro quo," when he talks to Wade and unveils their plan. I thought that was a cute little way of saying it.
Yeah, that was really, really great. The only thing I've got, in addition to that we haven't already discussed, is those, again, it's another nod to the comic book readers that you wouldn't, I don't think you really know who they are unless you had read the comic. It's those Knot Tops, that gang of kids that he's talking to at the beginning of the movie, and that the girl is part of. They have the knots on the top of their head. I went back to the comic book and flipped through it, and sure enough, that gang is in there. And so it was really cool to kind of have that callback to the comic of that knot top sort of group.
Yeah. You already spoke about the hours in the video to the president, Redford.
Yeah, and everything else we've pretty much talked about. The only other thing I thought, and I put this out to our listeners, but no one gave us any feedback this week. I'm really interested to know, though, for those of you that are listening, that are watching the show, that didn't follow the comic books, that didn't read the comics, did this episode help you a lot, or did it raise more? Was it harder for you to understand with the squid? Because I mean, I loved that image they showed of New York City with the giant, great way of talking, with the giant squid in it, is straight out of the comic. That's a straight splash page from the comic, and it was amazing to see that on screen.
Oh yeah,
with the tentacles going through the buildings and everything. I loved that opening, getting to see that opening scene. The girl talking about Pale Horse, the group that was playing at Madison Square Garden when the thing attacked. And it wasn't that kind of a cool little Easter egg there, that Steven Spielberg is still a movie maker, but he made a movie about the squid attack.
Yes.
That was a pretty cool little Easter egg to know that even in that world, Steven Spielberg is making these huge blockbuster movies that get big Oscar nods.
Awesome. Yeah, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
There's not really much for comic talk this week. I really didn't do much research, but
I haven't. I'm gonna try to read some comics over Thanksgiving weekend. I'm not traveling for the first time in a few years. I'm not traveling over Thanksgiving weekend, so I'm hoping to get to put in some time on reading comic books. I'm excited for. There was an announcement, and I didn't put in the notes because I didn't dig too deep into the article. But there is an announcement that they have at least started talks about a Moon Knight, some sort of Moon Knight series.
Yes,
for the MCU, and I'm excited about that because I love that character of Moon Knight. I love that just the idea of a character who has this bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, but then gets imbued with the power of a god, and how that or a god makes him his knight. It's really just a cool. If you guys don't know the backstory of the hero Moon Knight, look it up. Mark Spector was a mercenary who was left for dead in a Egyptian temple. What do you call those things?
What the
triangle things?
Oh, pyramid.
Pyramid. Thank you. Was left for dead in a pyramid that was dedicated to the god Khonshu, and supposedly the way the comic book goes, the god Khonshu brought him back to life and chose him to be his knight, representing him to the world or something like that, and so imbued him with some superpowers, which he then would go out into the world and fight crime. But he has multiple personality disorder. So he has those problems as well. It was a great comic book in the 80s. I collected a bunch of them, and I've got a few of them now, the newer runs that I need to go back and read. I've got some of the trades from the newer runs that I need to go back and read. But I'm excited for Moon Knight. That's the one that we don't have a lot of information of that I'm really, really looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm just looking up something right now.
Well, while Mark is looking that up, let me let you know that you can hear us on Spotify, Google Play, Apple iTunes. I believe Mark said last week we are now on Stitcher and a few of the other podcast client players. And so whatever podcast player of choice you use, you can hear us on there. Just look up Panels to Pixels podcast and look for us. We'll have some new art coming out very soon. Looking forward to thank you to Kirk Manley, who's working on that art for us. We'll have that out hopefully very soon. And you can check us out on those different formats. If you want to interact with us, you can go to our website, which is panelstopixelspodcast.com. You can send us email at panelstopixels1@gmail.com. That's panelstopixels1. The 2 is spelled out right there in the middle, TO, and the number 1 at the end, at gmail.com. Or the best way to interact with us is through our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/panelstopixels. You can also call us and leave a voicemail at 845-350-2095. Again, that's 845-350-2095. And all this information is in the podcast notes. If your podcast player gives you the ability to see those notes on the podcast. Also, we put up a spoiler thread in our Facebook group every week that you can post your feedback comments right there. I'm looking forward to hearing hopefully some things from people in the next few weeks. Get some feedback from what people thought of Watchmen.
Okay, so what I was looking up was I remembered it on the top of my head. November 23rd. We're recording this, obviously, on a Thursday. It would be Saturday, but you might still be able to get it if you order it online or something. But The Walking Dead, The Alien, is going to have a physical copy available on Comic Book Day. It's not free Comic Book Day, it's just Comic Book Day. So you should be able to get your copies either through Amazon or what have you. Probably be available come next when you hear this on Sunday. So, or maybe your comic book shop has it, because a lot of people don't know.
Very cool. That's the one that's about Rick Grimes' brother.
Yeah, his brother
like
Jeff,
that, right?
that's stuck out in, I think, Barcelona, and encounters the ZA as it comes out.
Okay.
The other little bit of news I would have, there's a lot of rumors that are going around about the next Spider-Man movie that Sony's looking to do. It's rumored for a 2023 release, but might not be part of the MCU Phase 5. But there are hints from a leaked screenplay for it, stating that Peter will have to go to jail for Mysterio's death, saying that he's a killer. And then on top of that, eventually Peter gets out, I guess, of prison somehow. And then we see Kraven at towards the latter half of the movie. But whether or not, this is all speculation and this is all leaks. You can't really look into that too much, but it just gets us excited just hearing certain things like that. And that makes me interested into it as well. There's also a lot of stuff that's coming out on Disney Plus. So they keep adding more and more material for us to sneak peek into. If you look at YouTube, you won't see it on the actual Disney Plus app for what they have, but you could see a lot more going on with WandaVision, definitely Falcon and Winter Soldier, and definitely Civil War. Not Civil War, sorry. What If? Yeah, so basically, What If, they sent out a sneak peek. They got that at San Diego Comic-Con, which I thought was pretty cool. I think I mentioned it last week. But you do see Captain Carter, which would be a turn. So it's Peggy Carter with the Captain, the Super Soldier Serum. And then we do see Steve Rogers, and it is voiced by Chris Evans. And Haley Atwell is still playing Peggy Carter. But you see Chris Evans as the shrinky-dink little Steve Rogers in cartoon form, but inside of like an Iron Giant suit, like an Iron Man, an older version of Iron Man with a big bazooka on him, all gray. And they gave a sneak peek of something that I love, and I loved the series when it came out, and that would be the Marvel Zombies. And somehow they just showed a one scene where you see the Winter Soldier and he sees Cap, and I think this might be within Civil War itself, and it might have been a what if this happened, like if I forget his name, the guy in Ultron, or was it Civil War? It was Civil War. He was the ultimate baddie. And he releases this virus or whatever it is, and the virus turns out to be like a zombie thing. And basically, Winter Soldier turns around and he sees a zombified Captain America. So that to me is intriguing for the fact that they're actually gonna do something. I was hoping they would actually try to do this in movie form, but I don't think that would work.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like we talked about it, we spent a lot of time talking about it last week. I'm excited for the What If cartoon when it comes out. It's going to be a while for that one, but
yeah,
I saw a preview. I saw a little preview of the WandaVision that's coming out this. That's the first one. That's spring 2020.
Yeah.
I think that one looks kind of cool, and it is Paul Bettany,
Elizabeth
and,
Olsen.
Thank you. Yeah, who are doing the voices, or I don't know if it's live action or if it's cartoon or not. I don't remember. Yeah.
I think they might be doing it live action because they say that this is going to be centered around or try to allude to get to the next Doctor Strange movie. So what happens here happens there.
I didn't watch the whole thing. So
yeah, the D23 explains it.
I just saw them introduce Paul Bettany, Elizabeth Olsen, and Kat Dimming, yeah, who's going to be in it as well. So
yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, if you guys want to listen to me, I do another podcast. So I do the Walking Dead talk through with Brian Malash on Talk Through Media. And we review. As you could tell, I was talking about the what if with the zombies, but we review The Walking Dead each week. So this show's basically on the Next Level Podcast Network. It will stay here, but we like to link sometimes to the Talk Through Media webpage where The Walking Dead Talk Through podcast is hosted, and vice versa at times. So I would recommend, if you're interested in The Walking Dead right now, ratings have been going up. People are getting a little bit of buzz about what's going on. And I'm really enjoying it for the fact that we're getting to see a little bit more into what's going on with the Whispers. So if you're into that kind of stuff, please follow us on talkthroughmedia.com or wherever you get your podcast to listen to. That would be Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or Spotify, or even TuneIn. And if you really want to, just like with this, we've been doing with this particular podcast, we put it on YouTube as well. So keep in touch here, or you could go to talkthroughmedia.com to leave any feedback you want.
Very, very cool. And as always, we recommend all of the podcasts on the Next Level Podcast Network or the Podcasting Network. I submit regular feedback to Strange Indeed, to We Have to Go Back, The Lost Revisited podcast, and I've been trying to get in. I think I missed last week. I've got something for them I sent them something this week for Watchmen for TV Podcast Industries. I want to give them a little bit of a shout out because they're great. That is another great Watchmen podcast. If you're enjoying our podcast, go over to TV Podcast Industries. Listen to both. I listen to both, so
yeah,
you should too.
Yeah, definitely. And we also like to recommend DC Primetime, which is on the Next Level Podcast Network with Ben Beck, and they discuss everything that's on the CW, and that would
every DC
show. But this is going towards ahead because we're coming up, and come December 8th, I believe, starts Final Crisis, which is, for a lot of you comic fans, that would be Crisis on Infinite Earths. Right now, you're going to see a lot of Superman. You're gonna see a lot of people in that show, and I'm really hyped for it. Ben's hyped for it. We want to see this like right now. Right now, the shows are currently leading up to that slowly with their own storylines and story arcs. You could watch Batwoman. You could watch The Flash. Green Arrow is in its last season. And what else is on there as well? Supergirl.
I don't know. I haven't been
Supergirl.
I'll be honest, I haven't been following it. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, so I recommend that. As soon as this week ends, and we're going on a hiatus for the Walking Dead talk through, for the fact that it's the mid-season finale for The Walking Dead. So I get to actually concentrate and watch all that stuff and get to send feedback to Ben on those particular podcasts, because I do enjoy and I love those shows. It started with The Flash for me, and then it was Legends of Tomorrow, and then led to Supergirl and Batwoman. Green Arrow I've watched only a few times, but I do highly recommend them for the fact that they kind of intertwine. And I really do and enjoy it, and I think you guys will too, even if it's just for the miniseries for Crisis, because you're going to have Brandon Routh as a Superman. He's going to be Kingdom Comes Superman. We're going to see from Smallville,
Tom Welling.
Yep, he's going to be reprising his role. He's not going to be Superman, but he will be Clark with powers, just like he was in Smallville. So If you all remember that, Tom Welling, when he signed on for Smallville, he basically said no flight, no tights. So obviously we're not going to see him in
He
tights.
did it for the last episode, though. So
No, that was all CG. He
Okay.
he says in a lot of podcasts that he did not wear it. They CG that stuff in.
Okay.
That was not him.
it still was done, though. I
But-
mean, I understand what you're saying. The actor didn't actually put the costume on, but I'm saying we got to see that in the show. So
Oh yeah, we did get to see that. Yeah, but it was, he says flat out. He even tells Ben in his interview, if you listen to the Celebrity Spotlight, he does not, and he goes, absolutely not. Nope. So he got his way, and he's doing the same thing on this, but he's still reprising himself as Clark. So, and we have the other Superman who was involved with Supergirl. You're gonna see Supergirl, and we're gonna see Kevin Conroy as Kingdom Come Batman. So that's going to be amazing. And on top of that, we're going to get Batwoman 2, which is pretty much almost like a prequel to where we get to Crisis. Because last season we saw Batwoman in a couple episodes. So my recommendation would be, hey, go out there, check it out if you're interested in that kind of thing. I know of a lot of people that are interested. Jerry Ordway, who actually drew for Crisis on Infinite Earths and The Death of Superman. He can't wait. He's anticipating this. He's loving the idea, just as I am. And anytime I go into the comic book shop, I think that's all we talk about. But yeah, go out there. And if you want to, it's not going to be exact to the comic, because you got to realize this is CW. This is not the movies. And pretty much, even in the movies, you're going to get a different story. But if it intrigues you after you watch Final Crisis on TV, I would recommend getting the trade paperback itself, because it was a good story, and it was the first of its kind to show a multiverse in a sorts, whereas Marvel didn't do that until later on with their writing in comics. So DC kind of got a one-up on them. As soon as they started that, then Marvel jumped onto that camp as well. So, but basically, that's my little bit of input for this evening.
that's all I got. That's all I got. Yep.
That's all you got? Okay, all right, cool. So that's it for our show this evening. I just want to thank everyone for listening. I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Panels to Pixels. Good night, everybody.
Good night.